Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Iazicho Africa, the voice of Africa's new era of global deals, rising opportunities, and shifting power. Today, we bring you a story that is shaking the tables of international trade and diplomacy. India has just beaten the world's most powerful players. Yes, the United States of America, Russia, and France, to secure Côte d'Ivoire's timber riches. This is not just another business agreement. This is a signal, a wake-up call, and a symbol of how the balance of power is changing, not just in Africa, but across the globe. For decades, timber from Côte d'Ivoire was seen as the backyard business of France, the former colonial master. Russia has been eyeing African natural resources to strengthen its position in the face of Western sanctions. The United States has long believed it can step into Africa whenever it chooses. Yet, when the dust settled, none of them walked away with the prize. Instead, India triumphed. Why is this such a big deal? Because timber is more than just wood. It's the foundation of construction, the core of furniture, paper, packaging, renewable energy materials, and even high-end green technologies. In a world where sustainability is the buzzword, reliable access to timber is not just about business. It's about influence, soft power, and securing the materials to build tomorrow's cities and industries. And here's the kicker. Côte d'Ivoire is Africa's timber giant, home to rich forests of mahogany, teak, and Iroko, resources that fetch billions on international markets. Whoever wins access to this wealth wins not only economic advantage, but also deeper ties with Africa's fastest-growing economies. So in today's story, we will break down why Côte d'Ivoire's timber resources are so important, how India managed to secure this deal against such powerful rivals, why the United States, Russia, and France lost out, what this means for Africa's new place in global trade, and most importantly, what it signals about the future. Stay with us until the end, because the conclusion will connect everything to Africa's future, and of course, to your #1 channel for these powerful insights, Iazicho Africa. Let's begin. When we think of Africa's natural wealth, our minds often go first to gold, oil, diamonds, and cocoa. But there is one resource that has quietly shaped the continent's economy and environment for centuries: timber. Côte d'Ivoire, in particular, stands tall as one of Africa's leading producers of tropical hardwoods. Its forests stretch across millions of hectares, blessed with mahogany, Iroko, sippo, teak, and other hardwood species that are prized globally. These woods are not just strong. They are symbols of luxury and durability, used in everything from high-end furniture to construction, interior design, shipbuilding, and even luxury musical instruments. Let's put some numbers to this. Côte d'Ivoire produces over 4 million cubic meters of timber annually. The sector employs hundreds of thousands of people, directly and indirectly, from loggers and mill workers to truck drivers, carpenters, and exporters. In terms of revenue, timber exports contribute billions of dollars to the Ivorian economy. But here's the deeper layer. Timber is a renewable resource when managed sustainably. This gives it a special place in the global push for a greener economy. Countries and companies are under pressure to reduce their carbon footprint, and sustainable timber offers one of the best paths forward. It replaces plastics, reduces reliance on steel and concrete in certain uses, and stores carbon even after being harvested. For Côte d'Ivoire, timber is both a blessing and a responsibility. Over the past decades, unsustainable logging led to significant deforestation. Forest cover fell from about 12 million hectares in the 1960s to less than 3 million today. This environmental crisis has pushed the government to rethink its timber policies. New regulations emphasize reforestation, sustainable logging, and value-added processing before export. And this is exactly where global players step in. Countries with advanced technology, investment capacity, and political influence want to share in Côte d'Ivoire's timber sector. For France, it's a matter of maintaining influence in its former colony. For Russia, it's about expanding into Africa to compensate for shrinking markets elsewhere. For the United States, it's about preventing rivals from controlling strategic resources. But here's the twist. Africa is no longer a passive participant. Leaders in Abidjan, the capital of Côte d'Ivoire, are not interested in deals that simply ship raw logs abroad. They want partnerships that bring factories, jobs, reforestation programs, and training opportunities for Ivorians. And that's where India saw its opening. India's engagement with Africa has often been overshadowed by China, which has built massive infrastructure projects across the continent. But slowly and steadily, India has been carving out a powerful presence, one based less on flashy megaprojects and more on trust, trade, and technology transfer. In West Africa, India is already a major buyer of cocoa, cashew nuts, and oil. Its trade with Côte d'Ivoire has grown steadily over the last 2 decades. Indian companies are investing in sectors ranging from pharmaceuticals and IT to agriculture and mining. What makes India's approach stand out is its emphasis on mutual growth. When India comes to the table, it doesn't come with military bases or heavy political demands. Instead, it offers credit lines, capacity building, and skills transfer. For African nations, this feels less like exploitation and more like partnership. That perception has helped India gain ground in places where traditional powers are losing influence. Take, for example, India's duty-free tariff preference, DFTP, scheme, which gives African countries free access to Indian markets for thousands of products. Côte d'Ivoire has benefited greatly from this, exporting cashew nuts and cocoa with fewer barriers. Now, with timber in the picture, India is extending this partnership into forestry. India's strategy in timber is not just about buying logs. New Delhi made it clear it wants to invest in local processing plants. This means instead of simply cutting logs and shipping them away, Côte d'Ivoire can produce finished furniture, plywood, flooring, and other high-value products at home. This creates jobs, raises export revenue, and helps the country climb the industrial ladder. Moreover, India has pledged to bring in green technologies, such as sawmills that minimize waste, software that tracks forest use for sustainability, and training programs for local workers. In a world that values sustainability, this offer resonates deeply. So, when India presented its timber partnership plan, it didn't look like old-school exploitation. It looked like a win-win. Côte d'Ivoire gets investment, technology, and jobs. India gets reliable timber access, trade growth, and deeper political ties in Africa. And this is precisely the formula that knocked the USA, Russia, and France out of the race. So, what exactly happened in this Côte d'Ivoire timber deal that has the world talking? Let's break it down. Earlier this year, Côte d'Ivoire launched negotiations with several international partners to expand its timber sector. Unlike the old days, when countries simply competed to export raw logs, Abidjan made it clear, we want sustainable growth. We want local value addition. We want partners, not masters. On the table were three major offers. The United States, backed by private corporations, promised to open new markets for Ivorian timber in North America. The United States. Russia proposed machinery and technical support, with the intention of shipping most of the raw wood to Europe and Asia. France, historically dominant in Côte d'Ivoire's forestry sector, wanted to renew its influence with a package of loans and guarantees. And then came India. Unlike the others, India's pitch wasn't just about extracting resources. It was about building industries. New Delhi promised a $3.5 billion investment package over 10 years to modernize Côte d'Ivoire's timber sector. The plan included construction of 5 large-scale timber processing plants across different regions of the country, training programs for over 15,000 Ivorian workers in modern carpentry, sawmilling, and furniture design, reforestation initiatives, with India pledging to fund the planting of 50 million new trees over the next decade. Technology transfer, including digital tracking systems to ensure sustainable logging and transparency. Export partnerships, giving Côte d'Ivoire preferential access to Indian markets for finished wood products. This package hit all the right notes: jobs, sustainability, technology, and market access. Most importantly, it aligned with Côte d'Ivoire's National Development Plan, which emphasizes industrialization and green growth. When the government of President Alassane Ouattara reviewed the offers, the choice was clear. India wasn't just coming as a buyer, it was coming as a builder. The deal was signed in Abidjan with great ceremony. Ministers from both countries praised the partnership, calling it a model for South-South cooperation. Within days, international media picked up the story. India had beaten Russia, France, and the USA in Africa's timber sector. Now let's talk about the losers of this deal and why they failed. The United States. The American offer was strong on market access, but weak on local value. Washington's proposal revolved around exporting raw timber to the U.S. for processing there. This meant jobs and profits would flow overseas, not stay in Côte d'Ivoire. In today's Africa, that's a non-starter. Ivorians want to move up the industrial chain, not stay stuck at the bottom. Russia tried to leverage its growing ties in Africa, especially through the Wagner Group and its political deals in Central Africa. But when it comes to economic partnerships, Russia lacks depth. Its offer included heavy machinery and export routes, but it had little to say about reforestation, jobs, or sustainability. In a world focused on green growth, Russia's approach looked outdated. France's case is perhaps the most interesting. For decades, it controlled Côte d'Ivoire's timber trade through colonial-era networks. But those days are gone. Today's Ivorians want independence, dignity, and modern partnerships. France's offer felt like a return to the past: loans, conditionalities, and a focus on keeping French companies in charge. That didn't resonate with a new Africa that's asserting its sovereignty. In short, these world powers failed because they underestimated the new African mindset. They came with the old formula: extract, profit, and leave. India came with a new one: invest, grow, and share. The ripple effects of this deal are massive. Let's zoom out and see what it means globally. For Africa, it signals a turning point. No longer are African nations content with being resource suppliers. They want partners who will help them build industries, create jobs, and secure sustainable futures. India's success shows that countries that listen to Africa's demands will win. For India, this deal boosts its image as a credible alternative to China. While China has built roads, ports, and railways across Africa, critics often accuse it of creating debt traps. India's softer, partnership-driven model presents a different narrative, one that Africa is responding to positively. For the United States, Russia, and France, this deal is a wake-up call. They cannot take Africa for granted. The old days of easy access to resources are over. To compete, they will need to adapt to Africa's new demands. France. And for the global timber market, India's entry into Côte d'Ivoire means greater competition. Prices may shift, supply chains will diversify, and sustainable forestry could get a big boost as India invests in reforestation programs. In short, this deal is more than timber. It's about the future of how Africa engages with the world. To understand the true meaning of this deal, we must listen to what Africans themselves are saying. In Abidjan, timber workers and entrepreneurs welcomed the agreement with optimism. For decades, many complained that logging only benefited foreign companies while leaving local communities in poverty. But with India promising to build processing plants inside Côte d'Ivoire, there's hope that jobs will finally multiply where they're needed most. One local carpenter was quoted in the national press: "If we can process wood here, in Abidjan, Bouak, or Yamoussoukro, it means more opportunities for us. It means my children don't have to leave for Europe to find work. They can build a future here." Environmental groups, who were initially skeptical, also noted the difference. India's commitment to reforestation and modern tracking systems suggests that Côte d'Ivoire is serious about protecting its forests. Unlike the slash-and-burn style of logging seen in earlier decades, the new partnership emphasizes sustainability. Ordinary citizens, too, see this as a victory for independence. Many Ivorians still remember how France dominated the economy after independence. To see their leaders now shaking hands with India, a fellow developing nation that also fought colonialism, feels like a new chapter. African analysts have described this as a sign of a broader shift. No longer is Africa simply aligning with the West or East. Instead, it is creating South-South partnerships that balance dignity with development. And for young Africans, who make up over 60% of the population, this resonates deeply. The message is clear: Africa is not weak. Africa has choices. And when those choices are made wisely, they can rewrite the rules of global trade. What does this timber deal mean in the grand scheme of things? Let's zoom out. First, it shows that India is rising as a global player in Africa. While China has dominated the headlines, India has been quietly building partnerships based on trust and shared history. With every deal like this one, its influence grows stronger. Second, it proves that Africa is no longer anyone's backyard. The days when superpowers could dictate terms are over. Today, African governments are negotiating tough, demanding value. and choosing partners who respect their vision. Third, it signals a future where resources like timber are not just extracted but transformed into industries that employ Africans and grow African economies. This is the only path to real development. And finally, it points to a multipolar world. The USA, Russia, and France must now realize that Africa will not automatically pick them. They must compete fairly, and in doing so, Africa benefits. This timber deal is not an isolated event. It is part of a bigger story, the story of Africa taking control of its destiny. So, what have we learned from this groundbreaking deal? India, once seen as a minor player in Africa, has just beaten three of the world's biggest powers, USA, Russia, and France, in a sector that matters for the future, timber. Côte d'Ivoire, one of Africa's richest nations in forestry, has chosen India not just for what it can take, but for what it can bring: jobs, technology, sustainability, and partnership. This is a win-win story. A win for Côte d'Ivoire, which will see growth, jobs, and reforestation. A win for India, which strengthens its position in Africa and secures vital resources. And a win for Africa as a whole, proving that the continent can shape deals on its own terms. It's also a wake-up call to the world powers. Africa is no longer a silent participant. It is an active player, choosing wisely and shaping the global order. Those who underestimate this new Africa do so at their own risk. For us here at Iazicho Africa, this story is not just about timber. It's about the bigger picture of Africa's future. A future where partnerships are fair, where resources fuel development, and where Africa finally takes its rightful place as a global powerhouse. And as we always remind you, this is only the beginning. More deals are coming, more partnerships will be forged, and more powers will be surprised by Africa's choices. So, stay tuned to Iazicho Africa, your #1 channel for breaking down Africa's mega deals, untold opportunities, and the rise of a continent that refuses to be underestimated. Because Africa's time is now, and the world is watching.